Hello to everyone. Welcome to a new session of Wisdom Pattern, Order, Disorder, or Reorder. A new session in two parts. The Cosmic Egg of Meaning. This is your Pastor Yeti. If we are going to be the rebuilders of society, we need to be rebuilt ourselves. A healthy psyche lives within at least 3 containers of meaning. Imagine 3 domes or levels of meaning. The first is called my story. The second is our story. And the third is the story. This is what I call the cosmic egg. It is the unique and almost unconscious gift of a healthy religion. Much of the genius of the biblical revelation is that it honors and integrates all 3. Much of the weakness of destructive society is that it is usually honors only one level at best, and thus treats that level very poorly. Most postmodern people are trapped inside the smallest container. If they are secular individualists, and in the second container, if they are merely cultural conservatives, and in a false version of the third, if they are fundamentalists in any form. The saint, whole, healed person lives happily inside of all 3. This is me. As I said, the cosmic egg divided in 3. The modern and now postmodern world is the first period of history where a large number of people have been allowed to take their private lives and identities seriously. Many of our parents did not even have a language for it. There is a wonderful movement into individualization here. But there is also a diminishment and fragile if that is all we have. Individuation, by the way, is a positive word to describe an appropriate sense of self, ego, and boundaries. Individualism, however, refers to the exaggerated sense of self, ego, and overprotected boundaries. In this first dome is my private life, so I'm going to explain the cosmic egg. Those issues that make me special, inferior, or superior, right or wrong, handicapped or gifted, depending on how I see it. I and my feelings and options are the reference point for everything. We must let go of exactly this in early prayer practice, and yet this is the very tiny and false self that contemporary people take as normative and even sufficient. The dome of this is me is about all the postmodern person has left. My power, my prestige, and my possessions. It's a little stage where I do my dance and where the questions are usually, who is watching me? How do feel? What do believe? What makes me unique? It's a passing arena, to be certain. It will be over in a few years, and is frankly boring if it is all we have to talk about. My story is not big enough or true enough to create large or meaningful patterns by itself. But many people live their whole lives at this level of anecdotes and nurtured self-image without ever connecting with the larger domes of meaning. They are what they have done and what have been done to them, nothing more. You can see how fragile and unprotected and therefore constantly striving the self will be. It is very easily offended, fearful, and therefore often posturing and pretentious. My opinion is that if we stay in the smallest dome of meaning, we often move toward a neurotic self-image. Jane Houston put it this way: when mystic material remains latent, unused, and unexplored, it can lead to pathological behavior. This small and fragile self needs to be a part of something more significant. And so it creates dramas, tragedies, and victimhoods to put itself on a larger stage. Just watch American television, where trivia and travel are raised to an art form, as much by the news, political commentators, and religious programming, as by the easily criticized talk shows. Unfortunately, that's the primary paradigm out of which we live today. Merely episodic meaning, bolstering the tiny and disconnected self. A woman claims to be receiving apparitions from Mary. A gunman wants to get his picture in the news. Both are isolated and episodic, but trying to be cosmic. It gives the small self a sense of being a part of some national drama, as we constantly decide who is which, who is bad and who is the hero. Life as a giant who, then it seems, to be the secular form of heaven and hell. The small self is intrinsically unhappy because it has no ontological foundation. It is not real. It does not exist. It will always be insecure, afraid, and scrambling for significance. The purely secular project is doomed to create catastrophe. The stage isn't big enough for us all to be special on this little earth, except under the sacred canopy of the larger domes of meaning. In Jesus' language, the branch cut off from the vine is useless. John 15, verse 5. And this is us, our story. So the third part of the meaning of the cosmic egg. The next and larger realm of meaning is about us. This is the dome of our group, our community, our country, our church. Perhaps our nationality or ethnic group. For young people, it is often their friends, their gang, or even their kind of music. We seem to need this to contain our own identity and security as social beings. Again, it is both good and necessary. If we do not have a group or, at least, a family with which we can bond, we create asocial beings, sociopaths or psychopaths, incapable of bounding anywhere. Most of us have multiple memberships: family, neighborhood, religious affiliation, country. These are our schools for relationships, connection, and almost all virtue as we know it. Everyone has this level of meaning, consciously or unconsciously, negatively or positively. We are essentially social beings, and we live inside of some shared meanings, which become our reference points, our runway. It is the necessary training ground for belonging, attaching, trusting, and loving. If we bound in a healthy family, are proud of our religion and our group possibilities, we might just write new scriptures. Some folks, unfortunately, just spend their lives defending the boundaries and glory of their group. They write programs for war, scapegoating, and major illusions, or at least for smallness. Only group egocentricity is more dangerous than personal egocentricity. It looks like greatness when it is often no more than disguised egotism. The second doom of meaning gives us myth, cultural, heroes, group, symbols, flags, special foods, ethnicity, and patriotism. This tells us that we are not alone, we are also connected to a larger story. We might understand that it is fanciful, but it is shared meaning, and that is important. That we all know the same story of George Washington cutting down the cherry tree is more important than whatever it is actually true. But a lot of people stop at the level of shared meaning because it gives a lot more consolation and a lot more security to the small self. In fact, the loyalties of this level have driven most of human history up to now. These identities run so deep that many people have given their lives for their tribe, their country, their religious group. It is one step removed from true transcendence, so it is often becomes an easy substitute for God. Watch people and their emotions in regard to war, flag, religion, or team. To die for this feels like dying for God, and that is why it takes so little to talk young people into dying in war. Men seem especially prone to the consolations of group belonging, perhaps because they are less capable of personal intimacy. Women will die for a child. Men prefer to die for a cause. Clearly, we are dealing with archetypal meanings here. If we have not connected with the third level, these are our only gods. People try to find identity in a group as institutional affliction, a nation, a public cause, or today, like never before, public fame or infamy. Somehow to be on the news or in social media is to be immortalized. It takes away much of the anxiety of developing a personal self. People feel protected inside of the group, identity, or public fame. We all connect with one group or another. A lot of Americans bought into the second level, especially after the World War of the 20th century, the World's Wars. It became the operative mythology of this country. How fine to think of the glory of being American. We were the laborers of Europe and the good guys in almost every conceivable context. This romanticized mythology served us very well, although not the rest of the world, until it began to unravel in the 1960s with the Vietnam War, the civil rights movement, the political assassinations, and the hippie movement's wholesale rejection of cultural illusions. Although these constructions began in Europe much earlier, it did not really happen in America until the 1960s. Some would date it precisely at 1968. America definitely seems different before and after 1968, and we are still in the process of trying to understand what fell apart and why. Many people think of that particular generation in that day that it was so good before, so it must have been right. The great This Is Us doom is summed up in that common phrase for God and country. It was engraved above so many lintels, included in the mottos of so many organizations, a place at the top of so many letterheads in America that most Christians never stopped to realize that it was both heresy and adultery. Each group, of course, had God all to themselves, just the way our Jewish ancestors wanted to keep God in their temple, while still daring to call Yahweh the Lord of heaven and earth. Tribal gods flourish in Second Dome people. After teaching and observing in churches, we can still find amazed that Americans are not bothered by the flag in the sanctuary of some of our Catholic churches, and so on and so on. Many people never move beyond this early stage because it provides so much identity and comfort, even though it lacks breadth, depth, and compassion. For many groups, like with early Judaism, separation and holiness are almost identical terms. Jesus, of course, rejects the law of holiness in favor of the law of universal compassion. That's a much more difficult path, integration rather than separation and segregation. We must have commitment fostering mechanisms to maintain life at the second level, symbols, songs, sacred times and places, and especially sacrificial things to which we all agree. There is no strong sense of being together in life unless we do some things together, especially it seems the things that are strange, visible, and demand constant sacrificial choice. Jesus was not into tribal religion, groupthink, and loyalty test. Much of the institutional church is into them, however, and always have been. It works too well to call it into question. It holds us together, and that feels like salvation, even if it is a very deteriorated form. The person who lives within the total cosmic egg is the mystic, the prophet, the universal human, the saint, the whole one. These are people like Mahatma Gandhi, Saint Buenaventura, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, Saint John Henry Newman, Dag Hammarskjöld, and Julian of Norwich. There are the people who look out with eyes wide as saucers at the smaller picture because they observe from the utterly big picture. These are the ones who can both honor and listen to the little stories and also live in the final state of affairs already now. They are often called seers because their perspective contains all the eyes, even somehow the eyes of God. The great ones are beyond mere group loyalties, beyond any simple dualistic thinking that always puts them on the right side, beyond winners and losers, good and bad. It is the contemplative mind that integrates and gives focus to all our calculating and controlling. Without it, there is only civil and self-serving religion. However, there will be societal reconstruction. It will come from people who can see in this way. Through reconstruction will be led by those who can see reality at all three levels simultaneously. They can honor the divine level and live ultimately inside of a great big storyline. They will appreciate the needs and context of our story and not dismiss it as mere cultural trappings or meaningless traditions. They won't say that my story is not important either. They won't demean or diminish people who are working on personal issues or addressing the important identity concerns of the first half of life. Most importantly, don't think you can separate one from the other. It is not sequential, but simultaneous. Many in our therapeutically focused society think they first must get it together personally, and then they will serve groups or serve for God. It all happens in a spiral, it seems to me. In fact, there is a natural ecology of checks and balances between the three domes of meaning. Most people emphasize only one or the other. Think about that, and you will have to agree. Someone who honors all three levels is like a major work of art. And I will stop here. We do part 2 on another day. I know it's a lot. But try to study the cosmic, the meaning of the cosmic egg. My story our story. And then we see later on the third one. May you have fun to discover a lot of yourself. And try to talk about it with other people. It helps to see more of yourself, or it helps you to help others to see them better, and to try to work in a new turn of your journey to be that full meaning in this cosmic egg. May God bless you. This is your Pastor Yeti. Bye-bye.